Hi, everybody. It's Stacey Staaterman. So I've been away for a little bit on a vacation, which has been super awesome, but I'm back with my Level Up Leadership interview series. Leading during uncertain times is difficult, and we keep thinking it's getting a little easier around here, and we get new challenges, new problems. My focus in doing this series about leveling up is about helping all of you renew, pivot, and thrive in 2021. And 2022 is around the corner. I'm doing this to support you guys, doing this to support myself for sure. And it echoes back to one of my points of inspiration. The future doesn't fit in the containers of the past, and this can be hard to swallow sometimes. But I think it's important for all of us to keep this on the front line of our thinking. And I'm super excited to have a dear friend, longtime friend, classmate from a long time ago, too long to discuss in terms of specific timing, Jim Woodell, who is the owner and principal of Jim Woodell and Company and Venn University. So, Jim, it's so awesome to have you here. Thanks for making
Great to be here. Thank you so much, Stacey, for inviting me.
Awesome. So, you don't know anything about Jim yet, but I'm going to brag about him on a few things. I actually needed more lines, but the system cut me off. Former APLU, former Syracuse, which is why we know each other, former Newhouse, which is why we know each other, doctorate from Penn State in higher education. This guy is super educated and smart and like lots of credentials. I can't even really all fit on here. He's a master facilitator, master thinker, community builder, lots and lots of stuff. Impressive home cook, cookies, pies, cakes is what I mostly see. Very, very jealous. Wish I lived closer to stop by, and master knitter. So, Jim, this is just a taste of what you bring to your work and to your life. But thanks for being here today.
Thank you again.
Awesome. So in our pre-discussion, we were talking about leadership and really kind of what that word means today. And we're not in a command and control universe anymore most of the time. And I loved that you shared back this quote from Kevin Kruse, the author of Great Leaders Have No Rules. And so I'll read it. Leadership is a process of social influence which maximizes the efforts of others towards the achievement of a goal. So tell me why this resonates for you.
Yeah, well, so actually, I just learned about this last week because I'm doing this program called Working Out Loud, program in a framework from a gentleman named John Stepper. And we talked in our Working Out Loud circle last week about leaders and who are leaders that we look to, people who've been able to sort of build community, create a movement kind of thing. And what we talked about was the fact that leadership is not so much about a position. You don't get, you can be appointed to be a leader, and you can be a great one if you're appointed to be a leader, but you don't have to be appointed to be a leader. It really is about it's not about the position as much as it is about the influence and the ability to get others on board. And I think that is probably the single most important aspect of leadership is being able to get other people on board with something, especially something that's uncertain. I know another one of the quotes that you and I talked about or you had shared was from Seth Godin, and he talks about that management is getting people on board or telling people to do something that is going to work. But leadership is really getting people to try getting on your ship, I think he says, to try something that, may or may not work or that they have no idea about. And so that's what really resonated with me about this perspective is that the focus is really on the social influence and also the ability to get others to essentially become leaders themselves, right? To sort of lead the movement forward on whatever it is that the group is trying to get done.
So I'm curious because you've worked so, tirelessly with so much emphasis in the higher education area. And let's be honest, I don't think most people think like higher education evolving super fast. There's a lot of legacy thinking, construct, et cetera. How do you get some of the more traditional tracks of industry or leaders to kind of embrace some of the new, or at least the opportunity to explore?
Yeah, well, that is I think in higher education, working with people at universities, it is a challenge because it's not even necessarily just the individual. You can have a very dynamic individual, somebody who's willing to take risks, somebody who's willing to adapt, try new things, but they're in this culture of the institution, and the institution has its way of doing things, and it has its way of knocking people down when they do try to take those advances. I think, it's the world and the environment that's going to, make it a lot easier, because institutions don't have these choices anymore. They can't maintain that kind of culture. They have to be adaptive. And the kinds of folks that I work with at colleges and universities are really at the leading edge of being adaptive and being responsive. They're the people who develop partnerships with corporations. They're people who work with communities that are distressed and having a difficult time, and help them find new ways to innovate and be better communities. They're the people who make sure that the products of research and discovery turn into something that is useful and available in the marketplace. I mean, so the people that I work with are already people who are used to, trying new things. They have to, in order to get their job done, because they're not just focused internally on the institution and the people within the institution. The biggest part of their job is focused on what happens outside the institution, and making sure that the products of the institution actually have, make a difference in the world. So I actually think that the people that I've been able to work with, and will continue to work with, they're the ones that are kind of setting the pace for this kind of responsiveness and adaptability in higher education.
Yeah, and that resonates with me, and I feel like I get to work with those sort of clients, or people that are, they know that they can't just do the same things, and yet they're in these cultures or these industries with these cultures, like, this is the way, and we have to just kind of suck it up and move along.
Right.
And I'm sure, I know I've had this personally, where I'm like, how do I renew my own ability to be resilient in this, fighting these establishments, if you will, with the cultures that at times seem to be really head in the sand. I'm curious, like, how do you advise those that you work with, or maybe even support yourself, when you need to kind of renew the fire to keep it all going?
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. When you said that, how do I renew myself? I went right to, I think I think any leadership that I've done, and over the last, 10 years or so, I've not managed big staffs, like I've not been a positional leader. Uh, in my most recent job at the Association of Public and Land Grant Universities, I worked with volunteers, a couple hundred volunteers who were focused on and interested in the kinds of things that I just described in terms of higher education, external partnerships, and things like that. And if I was a leader with them, it was just because, in the sense that Seth Godin says, you get people on board with something that may or may not work. I did that. I was able to bring people together. And so, to come back to your question, that's where I find my renewal, is those people. Those people are all friends of mine. They're people that I can, write to and say, hey, I've got this idea. I'm not sure it'll work. I'd love your feedback about it. Or, hey, I'm really stuck on this. I don't feel like I understand how to address this particular challenge. So to me, being a leader is about creating that sort of pool and
Right.
the place you can go back to and renew yourself and get new ideas, and it's about having your squad, the people
Yeah.
who are gonna be there with you and have your back, and also, like, who want to learn and grow with you. So I guess that's where I get my renewal. I go right back to those people.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I forget, who is it that says the 5 people you spend time with, are a big influence on how you show up. And I feel like that's a connected thought to what you just shared, and
Yeah.
resonates with me too. I think um, the challenge that maybe you and I don't have, because as people who are in our own businesses, we can pick exactly who we're surrounded by, for the most part. But for those who are, within industries, or trying to reconcile the fact that maybe things have changed enough that it's time to go, or it's time to be a disruptor or to say, no, this isn't the right thing. I think that it takes a lot of bravery too. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, it takes bravery, although I think that, you know, at the center of being an effective leader is finding what people believe in and helping them see that in the thing that you're trying to get them on board with, right? And I think when you get to that level, like you're not appealing to necessarily just the rational or just the brain part of people. You're appealing to their emotions and their heart. I think that is a place from which it's a lot easier to disrupt yourself or do something new or step out and be bold. That stuff doesn't come if you do that. If you're only rational, obviously you'll never do those things, because rational does not like risk, and all of this is about taking risks. And so I think if you're an effective leader, you're able to kind of not only tap that in people, but you're also able to help them tap it when they need it. And that's what they need. They need to go back to their heart. They need to go back to their emotion in order to be adaptive, to try new things and so forth. So we got to figure out how to get at that.
Yeah, I love that you brought up emotion, because, of course, I'm somebody who believes emotions. We know emotions with us all the time, but I'm curious, how do you bring that discussion of emotion into your work? Because a lot of places are like, oh no, emotions should be like on your personal time.
Yeah. That's a great question. I'm kind of one of those people. I mean, I'm not that way. I mean, I want there to be boundaries about it, right? Like I feel like I'm a heart person. I'm an emotion person, but at the same time, I want to get things done. And I think that's how you do it. I think you show people how the emotion connects to being practical. That, being practical actually means giving in to sort of how people are feeling about something, because you're not going to make any advance. You're not going to get anywhere if you're not really paying attention to how are people feeling, how do they connect to this. So I think that's it. Bring be emotional or embrace the emotion, but at the same time be practical about it. We're not doing this because we're creating a group therapy experience. We're doing this because we know that the best way to get the thing done that we all want to get done is to recognize how people feel about it.
Right. And it's that resonates a lot for me, because I don't think we're taught a lot about, the role of emotion when we're, being prepared in our great universities like Syracuse and Newhouse. There should be like a class, maybe there is one by now, that, talks about the fact that we bring our emotional self to everything, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. But I think I've had this similar experience. Like, if to the elephant in the room sometimes is the resistance, which is rooted in fear or concerns or things that are emotionally based, which if we can at least put it out on the table and in a safe way,
Yeah.
we can really, as a collective, decide or make some decisions about, is that real? Is the risk really that? What is it that, what is it we're afraid of, and what would happen? We can kind of explore that together in a more meaningful way, as opposed to being kind of in our own silos. I imagine the work that you do, bringing silos together, it must be kind of a regular thing.
Well, we hope so, right? I mean, obviously institutions of higher education, they're massive organizations. They're very decentralized. So yeah, that lends to itself to silos, which, are part of the strength of institutions of higher education, is that they can innovate in pockets without kind of doing damage to the whole organization, right? There's a little bit more opportunity for risk taking, frankly, because of silos. So silos are not always a bad thing, but yes, you do have to be able to connect across them. And I think that connectivity is what really becomes important. I think you can't smash silos. The bad way of going into it is to think that we're going to, knock over the silos. Instead, thinking about building the bridges or the connectivity between the silos and helping people see, again, how there is a collective effect. If we work across our silos, we're going to have a higher impact, a higher scale of impact, a deeper impact, because we're able to bring the sort of collective set of assets together and, make some headway. and I think that's true if you're managing a small team or if you're trying to lead a major research university. You've got to think about, how do people see themselves as part of a greater whole? Like, that's what gets people. It may not motivate everybody at the same level, but it certainly does have a big impact or a big effect on the outcomes.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. It's got me thinking about a lot of discussions I'm having. Can't smash the silos. I think I've been involved in a lot of conversations where they're trying to smash the silos. So
Yeah.
I'm going to really think about that. Thank you for that share. I wanted to circle around on something that we had a little pre-discussion about, a quote from Whitney Johnson, who is one of my coach crushes out there in the universe. She's awesome.
Yes, you gave me a book of hers, I remember.
Yeah, she's awesome. So definitely, she does a lot of live streaming. Definitely follow her, folks. She says every single person is a learning machine. All we want to do is to listen, leap, and repeat. So I that resonated a bit with you, and I was curious if you could tell me a little bit more about why.
Well, actually, you just added listen instead of learn to her.
I did.
But yes, but I think that's true. You can't learn if you don't listen, and that's really important. But yeah, what really appealed to me about this is that, I do all this work right now with design thinking and helping, universities and their partners think about how can we use the sort of principles of design thinking to be more responsive and to be more adaptive and move forward with things. And that's what, this said to me, was that, that's what design thinking is about. It's about trying something, getting feedback on that thing, and then iterating and trying something new, right? And I know Whitney talks about this in the context of this S curve, that we're always climbing. We get to the end of the S curve and then we make the leap to the next one, right? And that's what we all have to do ourselves and in our organizations if we're going to be able to adapt. I forget your phrase, pivot, thrive, and there was one other thing. Renew. If we're going to do all of those things, it means learning how to learn and how to be really kind of aware of what's going on when we try something, not just kind of trying to follow the linear A to B path, but really thinking about, well, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of, 2 steps forward, 1 step back that happens when I'm going from A to B. And I want to be mindful of why that's happening, what's happening when there is the back and forth. And that's what's going to prepare me for going from B to C, is being mindful of what I learned in that process.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And honestly, it's something that I personally had to get closer to, when I left corporate life. And I don't know, as somebody who's also, left, in your own business now, I was struck by in my exit, how much I had gotten connected to a linear up, progress doesn't have the S curve piece. So I really had lost track of that. And I could see in hindsight the detriment of that, to fail to recognize that I have to keep learning, and that I don't, none of us are going to collect a body of knowledge that will sustain us forever in a world that's so highly changing. You know, my dad worked at IBM for 30 years. Maybe there was a time where you could sort of stop adding new skills or stop learning at some point. I doubt it, but now is certainly not the time, right?
Yeah, well, even if you're somebody who's an expert in something, right, and that's what you do, and you don't have to like shift over and learn about AI when you know about this other thing, or whatever it is, you still have, in order to maintain that expertise, you still have to learn, because you still have to, to grow in that or whatever. So no matter what, you've got to be able to see where things have gone wrong and think about, okay, what did I get out of that? And what does that mean in terms of how I proceed? And so that constant learning is really important. And I think what happens is that we all grow up as professionals, especially a lot of people in higher education, professors, for example, who they make their living, they make their life out of being smart and knowing what the heck they're doing. Nobody wants to admit that they have anything to learn, right? Like, especially leaders, leaders are like, no, I know, I got it all. You're following me because you can have confidence in me because I know what I'm doing. I always have the answers. And that, is really detrimental because it does put you on that fixed path, and there are no fixed paths anymore.
Yeah, no, and I work a lot with people who are trying to reinvent professionally or looking for career growth, when they're in their late 30s, 40s, and 50s and 60s. And one of the things that we talk about early on is like the need to be okay with not knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And, this comes up a lot with people who are like, I don't know the digital world. I'm like, okay, well, 5 minutes ago, all the people who knew the digital world became unknowing because the digital world, something new happened. So the behavior and the sort of activities have to be committed to reskilling and studying the context. The context change can change the way you use any knowledge that you have that may be relevant anyway. But
Yeah.
it is a real challenge point, I think, for those in that age group, our age group, frankly, that people can get kind of attached to this idea that wasn't it supposed to be easier now, less laborious to do stuff,
Yes.
and
Right.
and I can understand those feelings, but I know for me, and I think this is I suspect this will resonate with you, that when you're doing the things that you find enjoyment in doing, like learning isn't a chore, and the acquisition of knowledge isn't a chore because it's part of the community, part of the connection, part of the discovery, the adventure.
Mm-hmm.
That's been the case for me. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, those words all resonate with me. I know there are a lot of people, though, that's not appealing to. Like,
Yeah,
discovery, trying different things, that's just not very appealing. But again, I think, going back to that very pragmatic, this is the way things get done. Like, a lot of people, I think more people have an affinity for getting things done and feeling a sense of accomplishment than they do for how you get there, right? So I think just helping everybody focus on that, we're gonna make some change, we're gonna have an impact, and the getting there, we're all gonna have to kind of, support each other because it might get kind of messy.
yeah.
But I
Well,
don't think you can always sell it by, oh, it's discovery, it's change, it's
no,
fun.
that's true. That's true. You're
You
right.
and I love that, but a lot of
You're
people are
right.
like,
You're right. You're 100% right. So I wanted to kind of close out our time with something I asked you in the pre-prep. The question I asked was about when you think of leadership, what is a key word or behavior or aspect that really comes to mind? And you shared humility, and I would love you to kind of lead us out of this discussion with a little bit of why you think about humility as a critical component of effective leadership today.
oh, geez, I think there's a lot of reasons. I think one is just going back to the word you popped into Whitney's quote there about listen. Like if you bring humility to your leadership, then you're more prone, I think, to listen carefully to others' perspectives. And I think you're also willing to understand as you're listening that you may discover something that you don't know, or a better idea than the ones that you have, or a better way of doing things. And, good leaders are going to do things the best way, not their way. Right. And so I think that humility is really what opens the space up for that to happen, because you're willing to say, I may not have all the answers. I'm really eager to hear where you all see things going. I'm not expecting you to have all the answers either, but let's all be open. Let's listen to one another. Let's believe that. Let's have the confidence that we do have some good ideas, but let's not think that our good ideas entitle us to be the ones, commanding the ship or whatever. It really is about kind of saying we're in this together. We don't necessarily have all the answers. And I think one other thing about humility is just that it lets everybody realize that they have something to bring. I talk a lot with people at universities about universities needing to be a little more humble.
Mm,
Universities love to talk about all the great things that they do, and they do a lot of tremendous, really great things, especially when it comes to, cutting edge research that saves lives and, so forth. But people have a hard time feeling that they have ownership when all they're getting is that kind of, look how great everything is. when people are asked how they feel, when people are asked what kinds of things they think they can bring to the solution, they tend to be more interested in being part of it rather than feeling like, oh, you're that over there and we're this other thing over here. Leaders should not feel like an other. They shouldn't feel like another entity. They should feel part of the gang.
Love that. Love that. So, Jim, we could talk for a lot
Yes.
longer, but I want to remind everybody that you are championing some great work. Give us like a sentence on, what you really are doing in your own firm and Venn University.
Well, in Jim Woodell and Company, we're trying to work with clients to really more and more. I'm really trying to help them think about how does design thinking change the way we approach building partnerships between higher education institutions and those in the private, civic, and government sectors. Just helping them really be effective at building the kind of collective energy around solving big societal problems. And having that kind of impact. And Venn University is this new online professional development academy to help those people in not just in higher education, but also the ones who are in the nonprofits and the economic development organizations and business and industry, who are all trying to work together and figure out how do we collectively work towards the kinds of economic and social outcomes that we all want to see in the world. So it's really exciting. We just finished our first term at Venn University. We had a group of students go through our first 2 courses, and we're really excited about the prospects ahead for that. So
awesome. So if anyone wants to connect with you, obviously your LinkedIn is one of your main places to get in touch with Jim, and also check out his website, jimwoodell.com. Jim, it's been so fun.
yeah.
We have long times where we don't talk, but every time we come back, it's just like we picked up where we left off, and I can't wait to see what you're baking next. So
Okay.
I'll be staying in touch for sure about some of that and some of the amazing work that you're doing. So thanks for being here. It's really been a great discussion. And anyone who's watching and you've left a comment or you might leave a comment in the replay, we'll follow up after because we don't see things live. And we will both be there to address any questions or comments that you've made. So thanks so much, Jim.
Yeah, thank you, Stacey. Thanks again for inviting me. And thank you to anybody who is watching the replay or who came to see us live. Really appreciate you.
Awesome. So guys, it's Renew, Pivot, Thrive for this year. And look, the next year's coming fast. I will be back next Wednesday at 12 p.m., back to our normal time at 12 Eastern Time, with another expert. Now, I am planning now to extend the plan to do these interviews. And so I'm actually looking for some additional guests. So if you think this might be something you want to speak to, this idea of leveling up, I'd love to talk to you about maybe coming on live for those who are brave and really have something they want to share with the community at large. So this is how you get me, and see you next time.